What is PowerPivot? Well, hey, welcome back to the Mr. Excel Netcast. I'm Bill Jelen. We're starting off here on a series of podcasts in support of the book PowerPivot for the Data Analyst, Microsoft Excel 2010. These podcasts are going to go along with that book and talk about PowerPivot, one video from each chapter. And first of all, let's just get started with the question of what is PowerPivot and why should I care? Now, this is a utility that came out from Microsoft, not from the Excel team, but from the Microsoft SQL Server Analysis Services team. In my opinion, this is the best piece of software to come out of Microsoft in 20 years. It enables 5 amazing things in Excel 2010, and the great news is the client version, the version that works here with Excel, is free. You can just go to powerpivot.com and download this, provided you have Excel 2010. All right, 5 things that PowerPivot does for us that I think just are amazing. First thing, no longer limited to 1,000,000 rows. Here I have a data set that I loaded up just from a CSV file. This data set has a whopping 7.2 million rows. Very fast to work with this. I can sort, I can filter, I can create pivot tables from this data, and it all works very, very quickly because the data is stored in memory. So that's the first thing we have. Second thing, I have sheet 1 here with the 7.2 million rows, and typical of the IT department, they gave me store ID, but they did not give me store name, region, and all that other stuff I need. So somewhere on my computer, I had this nice little lookup file, converts store ID, gives me the store name, the mall developer, the region, when it was opened, and selling square feet. Now, if you're used to Excel, you know, hey, this is simple. This is VLOOKUPs, right? VLOOKUPs will join these 2 tables together, but think about it, 7.2 million VLOOKUPs just to get store name, another 7 million to get region, another 7 million to get mall developer. You're looking at many, many VLOOKUPs. It'll take forever to calculate. The great news about PowerPivot is you don't have to do VLOOKUPs anymore. Just define a relationship. This store column is related to this store column, and PowerPivot is going to do all of the joins for you. All right, so that's the second thing. Third, let's go back to Excel. We'll take a look at the pivot table that was created here. The amazing thing, here's our list of fields. These are all the fields in sheet 1. So let's say that I want to see revenue. Simple enough. We've always been able to do that, although this is now revenue from 7 million rows. As I scroll down further in the PowerPivot field list, here are all the fields on sheet 2. So if I want to take a look at that revenue cut by, for example, region from sheet 2, bam, that's done. So they're now joining sheet 1 and sheet 2. I didn't do any VLOOKUPs. This is all happening in memory. Very, very amazing way to go. Fourth, and I'm not going to show you in this video, is the new DAX function language. DAX, well, 88 functions in DAX are exactly like the functions in Excel, so you'll be very comfortable with those. Left, right, mid, month, year, minute, day, things like that. Great. But there's 60 new functions, and those new functions are some of the amazing ones. There's time intelligence functions like show me all the dates that are month to date from this date, or show me all the dates in a parallel period 1 year ago. Also, functions to handle fiscal years. If your fiscal year doesn't end on December 31st, finally, Microsoft has provided something for you. And then finally, the last thing, the last cool feature is what I call asynchronous reporting. This is where we want to show, for example, actuals for all the months that have gone by and budget for the future months. Regular pivot tables can't do that. In Excel 2010, they added a feature called name sets that does that. But unfortunately, name sets don't work with data that is just coming from regular Excel. It only works with data that is coming from OLAP. Here's the beautiful thing. When you take that regular Excel data, run it through PowerPivot, bring it back to Excel, all of a sudden your data set is now an OLAP data set, which means that you can use name sets to create the asynchronous reports. Excellent, excellent feature. PowerPivot for the Data Analyst 1, importing data. Hey, all right, welcome back to the Mr. Excel Netcast. I'm Bill Jelen. We're starting to work through the PowerPivot for the Data Analyst book, and the first topic here is how do we get our data into PowerPivot? All right, so you can see here that we have the PowerPivot ribbon tab up here, and so we've successfully installed PowerPivot. Now to get data in, we could copy and paste from Excel. We could create a linked table if we define a table in Excel, but today I have a data set that is external, so it's not an Excel file right now. Now, if I had data that was in SQL Server or Access, I could do that. from other data sources, I can do that. But I'm kind of embarrassed. My data today is just a simple old text file. So I'm going to say from text. Now, the very first thing you want to do in this dialog box is make sure to choose used first row as column headers before you start to browse, because it's going to start to pull that data in right after we browse, at least the first 50 records or so. And so we we wanted to know that there's column headers up there. See this file, demo.txt, kind of an interesting file. It is 58 megabytes of data. So we're going to choose that, click open, and they're going to take a look at the first 50 records here and build a little preview that shows us the various fields that we have. Now, if you had a field, especially a long text field that you're not going to be reporting on, consider not importing that field. It will save a lot of space in the Excel workbook. But here, this is a pretty small little file. I want to import all of the fields that we have, so I go ahead and click Finish, and Excel will start to import that. Now, I'm not going to bore you as we sit here and watch this import. It's going to take as long as it takes. So if you have 100 million rows, this might take 20 or 30 minutes. There's nothing magic about the importing of data. So we'll just hang out here. We'll pick up again in probably about a minute. Okay, we're just about done. It's up to 1.8 million rows. Pretty soon here we will get the message. Well, actually, what we'll do is the stop import will change to close, and you know that we've pulled in the entire file. So we click close, and then here in the PowerPivot window we have those 1.8 million records. Watch how easily I can scroll through this data. I can sort the data. I can filter the data. Very, very cool way to go. And what's really amazing, remember that was 50 megabytes of data. If I go back to Excel and I do File, Save As, we'll save this workbook. That 58 megabytes of data gets crunched down using the VertiPack compression to, let's see what it comes up with here. PowerPivot 1 is now 3 meg. So from 58 megabytes down to 3.1 megabytes. Incredible, the VertiPack compression. I want to talk a little bit about PowerPivot. We've done a couple of podcasts before. I want to show you how we can take PowerPivot and mash data up. So here I have sales data. You see that it has a customer information, and here I have customer and sector. I want to put those two tables together. So what do we do? Well, normally that would be VLOOKUP, right? Not going to have to do that. Watch how easy this is going to be with PowerPivot. I'm going to create a linked table, and there's our first table in PowerPivot. I come back to the sectors, create a linked table again, and so now in PowerPivot I have two different tabs, the sales tab and the sectors tab. Go to the sales tab, the customer, right click, create relationship between sales and sectors. It's smart enough customer to customer. Click create. All right, now let's create a pivot table. Single pivot table. Look at this, we can create even 4 pivot charts, all controlled by the same slicers. Click OK. All right, check out this brand new field list over here. So we have all of the fields from the one table and all of the fields from the other table. If I want to see sales by sector, I click sector, I click revenue, and bam, it joined that data up. Isn't that the coolest thing? Also look here, we have drop zones for slicers vertical, slicers horizontal. Let's put year in slicers horizontal, and maybe month, maybe region. And now I can update this analysis very quickly. There's 2009, or there's 2009 and 2010 just for the East region. Very cool, very amazing. Great set of tools that are coming in Excel 2010. If you buy Excel 2010, PowerPivot is absolutely free. PowerPivot for the Data Analyst, Chapter 12, Asymmetric Reporting. Hey, welcome back to the Mr. Excel Netcast. I'm Bill Jelen. Well, Chapter 12 has a lot of cool stuff, but I chose this one for the podcast just because it's one that drives me insane. Regular pivot tables. Here we have store, year, type. Type is interesting because it has actual and it has, somewhere down here, plan. All right, so we have years and actual. I'm going to create a regular old pivot table from this. Insert pivot table. Okay, let's put store down the left-hand side, and then year and type going across the column labels, and then finally sales in the heart of the pivot table. All right, 2009 actual plan, and then 2009 total, which adds actual and plan. That is completely insane, completely meaningless, horrible. 2010 actual and plan, and then 2010 total. What I really want to do here is I want 2009 actual, 2010 plan. No way to do it. Not in a regular pivot table, because if I hide the actuals in 2010, they're all zeros. It'll hide the actuals in 2009. So every time I do this, I create a pivot table. I change the pivot table to values. I then have to delete the columns I want. Horrible. They added a feature, Microsoft added a feature in Excel 2010 that allows something called name sets. It's beautiful. It solves this problem. Here's the thing. It doesn't work with regular data. It only works with OLAP data. I hate that. Hey, here's an amazing thing. This is just a boring, really small data set. What? Not even 400 rows. There's nothing to join. You would say, why would you take this through PowerPivot? The reason I'd take this through PowerPivot is because PowerPivot creates this data as an OLAP data set, and then name sets work. Right? I realize this is complete overkill. It's like using a huge nuclear submarine to kill an ant, but it kills the ant. It solves the problem. So let's check it out. We're going to go to Format as a table. Remember, format as a table allows us to create a linked table. Back here to PowerPivot, create a linked table. Bam, we're in. Create a pivot table. Pivot table. Okay, now we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. We're going to put stores down the left-hand side, sales in the heart of the pivot table, and then year and type in the top. Okay, now we want to create a named set. I want to create a name set, so I come over here, we'll go to options, go to calculation, fields, items, and we're going to create a set based on column items. Okay, so what do we want? 2009 actual. That's good. I don't want 2009 plan, so we choose that row, delete that row. Don't want that silly total. It's horrible. Who would even put that in? 2010 actual, don't have that yet. 2010 plan, perfect. 2010 delete, and then all delete. Click OK. Alright, and there we have it, a real live pivot table, still tied to the original data set, still refreshable. It shows 2009 actual, 2010 plan using name sets. What a great feature that Microsoft added to Excel 2010, but to not allow it for regular pivot tables, only for OLAP pivot tables, very frustrating. Good news, if you have PowerPivot, easy to take that regular data, send it through PowerPivot back to Excel, and you can now create name sets. This is called an asymmetric report. Thrilled that it is finally viable here in Excel 2010.